Hi, and welcome back to the School for Professional Dog Listeners YouTube channel. Today, you have myself, Julie Cluley, and my co-founder, Ali Carrington. And we are going to talk about, or I'm going to ask Ali about, one of her dogs that brought a lot of learning to her life. So, a few weeks, months ago, we talked about Chili, the dog who essentially brought you to dog listening. But today, we want to talk about the next dog that came into your life, and he was called Kenny. So, yes, tell me a little bit about how Kenny came to be in your life.
Well, Julie, about 2 years after I discovered dog listening, so after Chili had brought me to it, I did something very dangerous. I got onto the internet and I looked at a dog rescue website.
I've got no words for that, Ali.
And I saw this dog, a boxer, 10 years old, but looked so much older, so thin, grey muzzle, and he'd been relinquished by his family due to various issues. Um, well, basically, I just couldn't really stop thinking about him after that. And so, after a few days, I showed him to my husband, who also knew he was in trouble at that point. And I mean, he knew he was in trouble when we met at university that boxer dogs were going to be in his future. So I can't really remember what how our conversation went, but there was something along the lines of, well, we've already got one. This one looks like he needs some help. And that was really our motivation, because he really did look like he needed some help. So, of course, I then contacted the organisation, filled in the forms. We had a lovely couple come round to kind of home checkers and interviewers. And I'd found out only a little bit about him, that they'd tried him with a couple of other families, but they'd always brought him back. He was what you call a typical yo-yo dog. Kept coming back to shelter due to his challenging behaviour, which was mostly on walks, we'd heard. But there really wasn't that much information on him. We didn't really know why his previous family had relinquished him in the first place. So I just went to meet him at the kennels, and actually I had the biggest shock and my first heartbreak with him, because he just looked so poorly. He was in such bad condition, so thin, really like emaciated thin, and so old. And he had, it's not very nice to say, but he had these tumours hanging off him. Really, it was quite a shock. And myself and the rescue lady that met me there were in doubt whether was going to survive much longer. And basically that was that. If he was going to die, my husband and I just wanted him to die with us, warm at least, safe at least, and in some level of comfort that we could offer to him.
Yeah, amazing. And so you didn't really know much about his background, and why he had been, taken to the kennels. Could,
No, sorry, we.
yeah, no, I was just going to say, could you, like, like now with hindsight, have you got an idea of why he was relinquished?
Yeah, so I think there were a couple of things. I think he was. We realised a number of different things actually. So we realised he had very serious anxiety, and particularly separation anxiety. I think they might have been living in a flat, and I think there might have been a family breakup where he was being left longer, and just barking, and obviously they were getting complaints, that kind of thing. We also discovered he was urinary incontinent, and obviously that's a bit distressing. Um, and I'm not sure when he became fully deaf, because it was due to ear infections, according to the vet that we took him to. But, deafness increasing deafness might have also added to the challenges that his previous family had. Um, yeah, it was he did, and then he had all of these medical things. You know, he literally did have things hanging off him.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
probably overwhelm from his previous family
Alzheimer's.
with
But yeah,
all
and
those
it's
things.
in yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How, oftentimes we sort of think in the rescue world that dogs are relinquished because the owners are like bad people or something, but they're often nine times out of ten not. And it sounds like in Kenny's case, it wasn't anything that we would maybe term abusive or, that kind of thing. It was a set of circumstances that had clearly not been conducive for Kenny.
That's what I would like to believe. And the positive thing was that they contacted a rescue organization, they took
Yes.
him, which is
Yeah.
actually very brave.
Yeah.
There's worse that can happen.
Oh, yes.
So
And 100%. So Kenny's now with you, right? You've taken him from the kennels and you brought him home. Is that right?
yeah, well, the only real thing that we needed to check was that he was going to be able to get on with Chili.
That's right.
So yeah, when the first day that I met him, I was pretty much like, I can't leave him here.
Mhm.
But I had Chili in the car, so we just needed to check that that was going to be okay. So I got
Yeah.
her from we popped him in a paddock, got her from the car, and just brought her over. And he sort of trotted over to her. Within like a millisecond, he'd assessed her as no threat, and he just turned and trotted off. And so we got into the paddock with him and just walked round. Chili was way more interested in him than he was of her, and that's the way it stayed for about 2 years. Which actually is a spoiler because obviously, having said 2 years, he of course didn't die straight away. And, happily for us, he lived for another 3.5 years. So yeah, we brought him home. It wasn't particularly great weather, but I had to have the car windows open because he smelled so bad. It
Gosh.
was it was really quite a thing, and I was starting to think, right, I'm going to have to wash this dog, and I don't
Mhm.
even know him yet. But bless him, it was the second heartbreak of the day because when I began to wash him, he just loved it. He just was like, he was almost like, yes, thank you, this is what I need. Yeah.
Bless him. And so the other thing that you kind of just touched on there is that Kenny was deaf. And how did you find that out? Or did you know that when you picked him up? Or no, you found
No,
out
we
and
didn't. And
did that
actually,
worry you?
it's something that I think you can get away with in without knowing quite easily in kennels, particularly if you've got an anxious dog, because an anxious dog is going to be alert all of the time. So it's not like I don't think he really slept very well at kennels. I think he was constantly on his feet, alert. And so they will have just not ever needed to call him and catch his attention because he was already looking at them
There.
and waiting. And yeah, so the reason we found out he was deaf was I was standing in the kitchen, he was facing away from me, and clumsy as I am, I dropped a plate
Oh,
just here on our stone floor, and he didn't do a thing. Chili scuttled out the way because she
yeah.
was somewhere else and very sensitive to noise, but he did nothing. He did absolutely nothing, no flicker of the ears or anything. So that was my first kind of like, okay, that's weird. Why didn't I give you a jump? And then I
Yeah.
just started, yeah, kind of testing it in the way that I felt like I could. And then when we took him to the vet for all his things, his ears were awful, and they were just saying, yeah, he's probably deaf because of chronic ear infections over the years.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, were you worried about that? Was that a concern for you?
No, not really. The only concern was his comfort for his ears, so we just, worked on clearing them up. We just tried to tick off all of these little health things.
Yeah.
and just to get him as comfortable as possible. But in terms of being deaf, no, because I think dog listening is, we're using species communication in dog listening. It's not ever really about us speaking to them verbally in the
Yeah.
way that we communicate to other humans. I think people think you need to learn an entire new sign language when it comes to deaf dogs, but actually, I dispute that. And it certainly wasn't the case for us. If I wanted him to come to me or come with me, I'd do what I do with hearing dogs anyway, which is direct eye contact and some kind of movement. Like with Kenny, we got really very subtle. I would just look at him and then go, and
Mhm.
he would be like, "Okay, I'm coming,"
Yeah, and he
or
wouldn't.
a hand movement, something like that. So, and you know, if I needed to keep him safe or taking him away from something that was freaking him out that he was barking at, then I'd just use the lead.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It kind of, yeah, it ties in quite beautifully with dog listening because we don't rely on verbal communication at, really at all.
no.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And that was with a dog that, didn't know you, that you didn't know. So it wasn't like you had a history of him knowing what you wanted or a routine or anything like that, and you were still able to do it. That's amazing. Yeah. And that must, I don't know, did that feel like a real close connection quite quickly?
Yeah, it did absolutely.
Yeah.
And the the thing about Kenny was it was all about his stress, and my job felt like it was right. How can I get him as relaxed as possible? He when he first came to us, he wouldn't really sleep with proper eyes closed. He'd always
Mm.
have his eyes open. So, however long it was, and when he closed his eyes, we'd be like, he's got his eyes closed.
He's actually sleeping. He's chilled out. I know,
Yeah,
it's so nice, isn't it?
yeah.
And actually, that brings me to the separation anxiety because separation anxiety is a difficult one in many schools of thought when it comes to dog training. And with dog listening, we do have some really lovely ways of dealing with separation anxiety that are really kind, that are really connecting, and yeah, we don't. The thing with separation anxiety is you definitely cannot solve it where the problem is because they're on their own. That's the whole point. The anxiety is happening when you're separated. So yeah, talk to me a little bit about that. How did that all work out?
Well, this was a real teaching moment for me, actually, because I'd never had a dog with separation anxiety before, but I'd worked with dogs and owners with separation anxiety. So I felt
Yeah,
like I had the tools to manage it.
yeah,
So, firstly, it's about that foundational interaction with him in a way that he understood. Um, and then practice the tool that we call gesture leaving. However, I hadn't counted on his level of anxiety that he was still carrying, actually. Um, and he quite quickly taught me that I was really trying too hard. And I was
too
trying,
hard, too fast.
yeah, I was like, I know what to do here. Let's sort
Let's
this
do
out.
it.
Yeah, let's do this. And yeah, I think, truly believe that one of Kenny's major reasons for, you know, coming to me was to teach me that doing isn't always the right answer. And that was quite a big one for me at the time, particularly as I'd been struggling with chronic illness myself and was in a period of confusion as to how I was going to fix myself. Yeah. So, he was showing me that I was basically continuing to stress him with my trying, with my
Yeah,
trying to do.
yeah.
He wasn't getting more relaxed. He was staying the same level of anxiety, and I could tell. It only took me about 2 days. I could
Yeah.
tell, I was, oh yeah, story of my life, trying too hard.
Yeah, and it's yeah, on our dogs, we always get the right dog for us.
Yeah.
always. And they've
Yeah.
always got something to teach us.
Yeah.
And was there anything else that Kenny taught you?
I think there's another really related thing that he taught me, and it was about pressure, actually, and how it was okay to take pressure off. Um, we quickly understood that he didn't really enjoy being in the outside world. He was not a dog we could take out for walks without him becoming very stressed. We were living in London at the time in a terraced house. He was really became really happy on the inside in the inside world, but
Yeah.
showed us that he was very worried in the outside world. He also didn't really respond very well when we rushed around, with our schedules trying to get our things done. And I had gotten myself into this cycle of kind of fairly high achieving life stuff where everything had to be the best. I had to be the best, work the hardest, do all the things that was expected of me, that my peers were doing living in London. But through Kenny's eyes, I started to question things that had become this norm for me. So,
Yeah.
did I need to continue to be incredibly social, incredibly busy? Did I need to do everything how I was doing it and experiencing everything that everybody else was doing? Because in my chronically ill state, I was finding that really difficult and I was becoming a shadow of myself anyway.
Yeah.
So, what was quite interesting, sort of the start of change, I think, was that I started to say no to things for his sake.
Mhm.
So, he needed quieter, a quieter life. He needed more peace in his life. So, I started to rearrange stuff to help him be more relaxed and happier. And so, guess what happened? I became more relaxed and happier. Um,
Wow.
I suddenly realised that I could say no for him, but I still found it hard to say no for me. So
Yeah.
it was just this realisation, that an old 10-year-old dog could help me realise. Yeah, I basically realised that the life I was trying to lead was actually no longer serving me. So I needed to find my own peace and my own new safety in this new phase.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Such a beautiful, beautiful story. And just, every time I hear people's story about their dogs and what they've taught them, it just blows my mind every time. It's like the world has this idea of like, okay, I want to slow this person down a little bit. Okay, well, we'll make them a little bit sick. That doesn't seem to be working. Okay, we'll give them this dog, this beautiful, kind, loving dog that it's like we get the information eventually when we,
I
yeah,
think the universe might have realised that it's dogs that will teach me things.
yes.
That I only really take notice of dogs.
If it's not a dog, we're not that interested, really. I love
Oh
it.
dear.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I really, really thank you so much for sharing that story with us. And I hope it has been helpful to anyone else who has been listening along with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, in the description, we have a link to our School for Professional Dog Listeners. Because as you can probably tell, Ali and I are very passionate about dog listening and dogs and how they can serve people and how we can serve them better. And we love to do that by training other people to do what we do. So, School for Professional Dog Listeners will be in the description. You can find out a little bit more there if you're interested in all of that. Thank you very much.